And now back to the shell page. You will see I already have some UI set up. There is a controller, the error-prone controller, which is currently empty. We're going to have to build that. But it is in control of this section of the DOM, and inside of the DOM here, if I flip over into the application, you can see the UI I'm building. The idea is to allow the user to type in some alert text, and then select the type of alert that they want to create. That drop-down list currently not populated. We'll have to work on that too, but then you click the Create Alert button, and that should send a message to the alerting service. So I'm going to need to bind the text from this text box, the selected alert type from this drop-down list, and wire up a click event with ng-click to this Create Alert button for everything to work. So let's switch over into the error-prone controller, which is currently registered with Angular, but there's nothing inside. So let's say that we will bind the alert type to an alert type property. And of course, I'm going to set up model to point to this because we're using controller as syntax. And I'll also have a model.alert message, which will be initialized to an empty string. Now back in the UI, in order to populate this drop-down list, I'm going to need a list of the available alert types. That might be best to manage from the alerting service itself. So back up here in the top of the service, let's create an alert types array, and we can have alerts that are success messages, info messages, warning messages, and danger messages. And now I just need to expose alert type, or that should really be alert types. I need to expose that also as something you can get to from the service object. And so in the error-prone controller, I will inject alerting and say that the model alert types will be equal to alerting.alert types. So let me save this and switch over into the shell and see if we can get this to display. This input is where the user will type the alert text. So let's use ng-model to bind that against model.alert message. And here is our HTML select control. I'm going to say that it binds against model.alert type. Those are the properties that we set up on our model for this binding. And I can also use ng options, which is a very flexible directive, but I'll use a very simple style here to say, please give me options that will be type for type in model.alert types. And if I just save everything and come back to the UI and refresh, hopefully we'll now have a drop-down list, which we do. We could do something a little more sophisticated to make sure that these entries don't appear with a starting lowercase letter. It might be nice to see a capital first letter. But let's work with this. The next thing I'll need to do is wire up the Create Alert button. I'll use ng-click and say that this goes to model.createAlert. And that's a method that doesn't exist on my controller as yet. Need to create that. So I'll save the shell file, flip back into the error-prone controller, and say that model.createAlert. That is a function that can be invoked. And when it's invoked, I just need to go to the alerting service, tell it to add an alert. The type will be model.alertType. The message will be model.alertMessage. And once the user has done that, it might be nice to blank these out again. So model.alertMessage is an empty string. Model.alertType, also an empty string. Or we could, now that I think about it, let's have a default alert type. We will just make it alert types sub-0, whatever is the first element in that array. So save everything and let's try this out in the UI. Do a hard refresh. This will be a success message, so this works. Create that alert. And that appears just where I expected it on the screen. That's good. Let's create a warning message. This might not work. That also appears on the screen, and I could continue creating messages, but you might be wondering if these messages will ever go away. Let's explore a couple different approaches. One approach might be to add some sort of close button here so a user can dismiss an alert. And another approach, which we can also implement, would be to just have these alerts go away after some specified period of time, maybe 10 seconds or 30 seconds. We'll look at those two scenarios next.